Welcome to the deep dive. We've got a really interesting set of research to look at this time, all centering on GHK-Cu. You might know it as copper peptide.
That's right.
It's this molecule discovered decades ago, actually, but it feels like the research is constantly finding new things it might do.
It really does. The potential keeps expanding.
So our plan today is to really dig into the science, what's behind it, what the preclinical studies are saying.
And the potential downsides too, right? Side effects.
Exactly. Got to cover those. And maybe touch on how some of the big names in health and wellness might be looking at this stuff.
Sounds good. And what's really striking, I think, is that it's natural. It occurs in our bodies.
Right.
Yet the more we look, the more complex its role seems. Fundamentally, GHK-Q is a copper tripeptide.
Okay. Tripeptide, so 3 amino acids.
Exactly. Glycine, histidine, and lysine specifically. And the key thing is they're bound to a copper ion.
Ah, the copper part. That's obviously important, given the name.
It's crucial. That specific structure, the amino acids plus the copper, gives it these unique biological actions.
And you said it's not new?
Not at all. Dr. Lauren Pickart first pulled it out of human plasma way back in '73.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And what caught his eye then was that it seemed to help liver tissue regenerate. That was the first big clue about its repair potential.
Liver regeneration back in the 70s. That really suggests something fundamental is going on, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And that early hint really set the stage for a lot of the preclinical work that followed, focusing on tissue repair and regeneration.
So that's where a lot of the lab studies have focused.
A huge amount, yes. Primarily in vitro and animal models, mind you.
Right.
But consistently, these studies show GHK-Q stimulating the production of collagen and elastin.
Collagen and elastin. Okay, the big ones for skin, connective tissue.
Exactly. They're the scaffolding, basically.
Mm.
Provide the strength, the elasticity in skin, blood vessels, all sorts of tissues.
So if it's boosting those building blocks, what kind of real-world uses are researchers thinking about based on this early stuff?
Well, the preclinical results point to a few exciting areas. Things like faster wound healing,
Okay.
potential for skin rejuvenation, maybe even helping with hair growth.
Hair growth, too. Interesting.
Yeah, some animal studies showed wounds closing quicker, skin getting thicker, and even healthier hair follicles when treated with GHK-Q.
So it's not just skin deep, potentially. It might actually be tapping into the body's core repair mechanisms.
That seems to be the idea. But the research doesn't just stop at structure, right?
Right.
You mentioned inflammation earlier.
Yeah, I saw some hints about that, and oxidative stress, too.
Another really important angle from the preclinical side, GHK-Q appears to have both anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties.
How does it do that, the inflammation part?
It seems to modulate inflammatory cytokines. Those are the signaling molecules that can crank inflammation up or down.
Right.
And on the other side, it helps protect cells from oxidative damage. That's the kind of damage linked to aging and various diseases.
Okay, so connecting the dots, potentially useful for conditions driven by inflammation, maybe even aging itself.
That's certainly the hope based on these findings.
Yeah.
And the potential scope keeps widening. There's also preclinical work looking at nerve regeneration.
Nerves, wow, okay. That's a huge area. What are the studies suggesting there?
Well, some lab studies indicate it might promote the growth of nerve fibers.
Really?
Yeah. And others suggest it could potentially protect neurons from damage,
Protects them.
which, naturally raises questions about potential roles in neurological health, maybe recovery after nerve injury.
That's quite a spectrum of possibilities from just this one molecule. Collagen, inflammation, nerves. Anything else popping up in the research?
There are a few other areas, though maybe a bit more preliminary. Some data hints at potential roles in bone regeneration. In angiogenesis, which is the formation of new blood vessels, super important for healing.
Right, you need blood supply.
Exactly. And even some very specific lab studies showing potential anti-cancer effects in certain cell models.
Okay, that sounds almost too good to be true across so many fields. But you keep saying preclinical. That's the big caveat, isn't it?
It's the crucial takeaway right now. Absolutely. This preclinical stuff, it's exciting, it provides a strong basis, suggests real potential, but
But it's mostly lab dishes and animals.
precisely. It lays the groundwork, tells us where to look, but we absolutely need solid human clinical trials
To confirm it actually works in people.
to figure out the right doses for different things and really understand the long-term safety and effectiveness. Can't skip that step.
Definitely not. Okay, so grounded optimism, maybe. Now, the flip side. What about side effects? Anything we need to know?
Good question. Always important. Generally speaking, GHK-Q is thought to have a pretty decent safety profile.
Which makes sense if it's naturally occurring, I guess.
Kind of, yeah. Our bodies know it. But like anything potent, side effects can happen, especially with the most common way people use it, which is topically.
Right, like in skin creams or serums. What might someone notice?
Usually, it's mild stuff right where you apply it. Maybe some redness, a bit of itching, maybe some dryness.
Right.
Often it's temporary, and sometimes using a lower concentration helps avoid it.
Yeah.
Very rarely, with really high concentrations, some people have reported a temporary bluish tint to the skin.
Blue. Okay, that's unusual.
Yeah, seems linked to the copper, but reported as rare and transient.
What about other ways of using it, like injections? Is that common?
Much less common,
Mm.
mostly in research or maybe specific clinical settings under supervision.
Yeah.
If it is injected, you might see typical injection site reactions,
Hmm.
pain, maybe some swelling or bruising.
Makes sense.
And a few people have reported mild stomach upset, maybe a bit of nausea.
So it really matters how you're taking it, the dose.
Absolutely.
Right.
Route, dosage, even just individual sensitivity, it all plays a role. Which is why, especially for anything injectable, talking to a doctor first is really crucial.
Good advice. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Thinking about some of the thought leaders out there, people like Andrew Huberman, Joe Rogan, maybe Dr. Craig Conover, they often talk about this kind of stuff. How do you think they'd approach GHKQ?
Well, taking Huberman first, given his focus on mechanisms and solid data.
Right, very science-driven.
Exactly. He'd likely talk about GHKQ regarding collagen, tissue repair, the actual molecular processes involved. He'd probably point to the promising preclinical work.
But emphasize the need for human trials.
For sure, that's his standard approach. Rigorous evidence is key, and he'd likely stress getting high-quality stuff and talking to a professional, like a dermatologist.
Sounds about right. What about Rogan? His platform's a bit different, more anecdotal sometimes, right? Along with experts.
Yeah, on Rogan's show, you might hear about GHKQ in the context of, say, skin health, anti-aging, maybe even athletes using it for tissue repair.
More practical applications?
Probably. Likely a mix of the science, but also people's experiences, what they actually observed using it, more focused on the does it seem to work angle.
Interesting contrast. And Dr. Conover, he works directly with peptides, doesn't he?
He does. He's deep into peptide therapies for performance, longevity. So it's highly likely he's discussed GHKQ.
So what would his take likely be?
He'd probably emphasize using peptides strategically, guided by someone who knows what they're doing. He might highlight GHKQ for speeding up injury recovery, maybe improving skin health,
Yeah.
potentially even using it as sort of a foundational peptide in a wellness or anti-aging plan, framing it within biohacking and regenerative medicine.
So it sounds like across the board, these figures would probably acknowledge the potential, but also stress being smart and informed about it.
I think that's a fair summary. It reflects where things stand promising, but still evolving.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. GHKQ, definitely a fascinating molecule. It's this naturally occurring copper tripeptide,
With a ton of preclinical research behind it now.
showing potential in so many areas: tissue repair, inflammation, maybe nerves, antioxidant effects. It's quite the list.
It really is.
Mhm.
But, again, while it seems generally safe, especially topical use,
You need to be aware of those mild side effects and definitely talk to a healthcare pro before trying injections or anything like that.
couldn't agree more. Essential step.
And it does seem like we'll probably keep hearing about GHKQ from those thought leaders in health and longevity space as more research comes out.
Seems very likely.
Yeah.
Which leads to kind of a final thought for you, the listener, to maybe ponder.
Okay.
Given everything we've seen GHKQ might do in these early studies, this multifaceted potential,
Mhm.
what other molecules naturally occurring in our own bodies might be out there holding similar kinds of surprising benefits? Benefits for our health that we just haven't fully uncovered or understood yet. It's a huge area. It's still waiting to be explored.